Hey everyone and welcome back to Programming Fields. I'm Umesh Rana. In the last video of Laravel 11 series, we have covered a lot from setting up Laravel environment, revamped directory structure, middleware, routing and many other stuff. Now in the today's video, we will see one of the new feature of Laravel 11, that is classes. Laravel 11 introduced few new commands and one of them is to create class. So in Laravel 11, now we can create class using PHP artisan command itself. So now it is not needed to create a class manually in Laravel 11. So in this video, we will explore what classes are, why they are important, and how to create and use them effectively in your Laravel 11 applications. So as we know, classes are fundamental building blocks in object-oriented programming. They act like a blueprints that define the properties and methods that object of that class will possess. So basically the properties refers to the data and methods refers to the functions. Also classes helps us to organize our code, improve reusability and make our application more maintainable. Laravel provides a handy tool called Artisan to kickstart your class creation process. So let's see how it works. So I have navigated to the VS Code editor and I already created a Laravel 11 application. So at the very first step, we will create a class using artisan command. So to generate a new class, we will follow the PHP artisan command. So let's switch back to terminal and here we will type PHP artisan make. Alright, so let's hit enter first. We can see list of available commands belonging to make. So if you will scroll up, then here we can see related to class, we have the command as make class. So let's type PHP artisan make class. Now let's hit enter and here it asked what should the class be named. We will provide class name, let's suppose user. Let's hit enter and yes, it created class as user.php inside app folder. Now let's check out the VS Code and here inside app it created user.php class and inside this class it generated a constructor. Also we can create a class inside any folder. So let's switch back to terminal and here I want to create a class inside class folder. So here I will provide PHP artisan make class and firstly I will create a folder name as classes and inside this class I will create user class. So let's hit enter and yes, we can see inside the app folder it created a new folder as classes and inside this classes folder it created a class user.php. Now let's remove this user.php class available outside this classes folder. So we will delete this. Yes. Okay. So inside this class we have the constructor by default. Now let's customize this class to make it more meaningful. So inside any class there are two main components we can define. That is properties and methods. So properties are like variables that hold data specific to any object and they can be public, private or protected, which are access specifier. So basically this access specifier will define which control their accessibility from outside this class. For example, let's define few attributes here, public $name and inside this class I will create one getter function. So I will define public function get name. Okay, and inside this I will return $this name. Okay, now let's call this class inside any controller. So let's create a controller first. So let's switch back to terminal and here I will create PHP artisan make controller user controller. Let's hit enter. Yes, controller is created. Now inside this controller I will define one function as get user. Now I want to call that function get name inside this user controller. So what I will do, firstly I will import that class. So I will write use app classes user and here inside this get user function I will create one instance of this user class. So I will write new user. Okay, and from here let's pass some name as admin and let's assign this to a variable as $user and let's add dump and die $user. So from here we are passing name as admin. Now we will receive this parameter inside this user class constructor. So here I will receive $name. Okay, and whatever I am receiving from this constructor I will assign that to this variable. So I will write $this name equals $name. Now let's save it Now we will execute this controller function. So what I will do, I will just copy this function. I will come back to the route, and here I will create one endpoint user, and then I will call user controller class and get user function. Now let's import this user controller. So we'll write app http controllers and then user controller. Now let's start the application. Let's copy this endpoint and let's access this. Yes, so we can see the name is displayed. Okay, so we have passed the name from this controller to the class. Similarly, we can pass other parameter. Let's suppose I want to pass age as 34, and here inside this class we will access $age. Now let's define private variable. So this time I will define private $age, and let's assign the same to age. Okay, and this time I will call one function get age. So basically this will return age. Alright, now let's save and let's come back to the browser. Let's refresh it. So it returned name and age. Alright, now again let's come back to the code, and here this time I will define one more variable as protected $salary. Alright, let's receive one more parameter as salary, and here I will assign this to salary. Let's create one more getter function get salary, and this will return salary. Now let's come back to the controller, and from here I will pass the third parameter. Let's suppose 1200. Let's save it. Let's come back to the browser and refresh. Yes, so we have received name, age and salary. So as of now we have defined access specifier as public, private and protected. So basically we are receiving these values from the controller. Alright, and after receiving the values we are assigning this value to these variables. So the first variable is public, second one is private and the third one is protected. So now to understand this difference between public, private and protected, let's come back to this controller, and here I will try to receive name just like this, and I will display name because inside this class I have defined this $name. Alright, and before this dump and die I will add one more dump, and in which I will display $user. Okay, let's refresh. So this is dump, and here we are receiving this name. Now let's try to access this age. So similar to this name I will change this to dump, and I will change this to age and salary. Now let's try to receive this age. Alright, and salary as well. Now let's refresh. So here it thrown error private age is not accessible. So currently we are trying to access this age directly from this user instance, but inside this user class we have defined this age to private. So this private variable is not accessible. So basically this private variable is not accessible outside this class. Alright, now let me just comment this and let's try to access this salary, because for this salary we have defined protected. Now let's check this. So again it said cannot access protected property salary. Alright, so basically this public variable will be accessed inside this class or outside this class, but now for private and protected this is not possible to use the variable outside this class. The private variable will be accessed within the class only. Now regarding protected, this protected variable can be accessed within the same class or its derived class. That means if we will extend this user class to a further subclass, then in that subclass we can access this salary attribute. Alright, so this is the difference between public, private and protected. Similar to this attribute, the same restriction will be applied to the methods. Let's suppose if you have public method, private method or protected, then the same access restriction will be applied for those methods as well. Now in order to get this age and salary, what we will have to do, we will have to call this function directly, because these functions are defined in the public mode. Okay, so let's check by calling that. So let me open this, and here I will call that function get age. Okay, let me comment this salary first. Now let's come back to the browser and refresh. Yes, we can see now we are able to access this age. Similarly for the salary, we will call that function get salary directly with this instance. Okay, now let's refresh. And yes, we are able to access age and salary outside this class using this getter function. But for this public variable, we can access this directly outside this class. Alright. And when we printed this user data, then we can see in the browser we have the symbol as plus, minus and hash. That means this age is highly restricted because this is private variable. Similarly, if we will define another public variable, then we will get the same symbolic link. So let me define one more public variable as public $info, and for this info I will assign this $info, and let's receive one more parameter as info. Now let's come back to the controller, and from here I will pass one more parameter as about admin. Now let's save, come back to the browser. Now let's refresh. So you can see again for the public variable the symbolic link is plus. That means this one is publicly accessible. So this is the basic use of class and object. Now we will talk about dependency injection, because when the application grows up, the classes mostly rely on other classes to function properly. So that's why we need a dependency injection. So in this case, what we can do, we can create one constructor inside this controller. So we will define one construct function. Alright. Instead of creating instance like this, I will directly call user, and here I will create its instance as $user. Alright. Now what I will do, I will create one variable public $user here, and inside this constructor I will define $this user to this user. Alright. Now let's move to the class, and here we will customize this class little bit more. So firstly I will remove these parameters. Okay. And let me remove these all attributes. Let me comment these all functions, and instead of this $this name, firstly I will return one static name admin. Alright. Now let's switch back to controller again, and let's remove these all lines. We have created the instance of this user class in the constructor, and we have assigned this to $this user. So inside this get user, I will call this get name function. So let's copy this function, and instead of this name attribute, I will call this function directly, just like this. Alright. Now let's save, and let's come back to the browser. Now let's refresh it. So you can see, so here we received name. Alright. So this is basically dependency injection. When this user controller will be loaded, by default it will load with user class, and here it instantiated that user class, and by using that instance we can call any function available inside this user class. Inside this class we can write any functionality, just like we can fetch model instance, we can map data, or we can write any business logic here, and then we can use those functions inside any further classes or inside any controller. Alright. Now we are about to end of this video, and by now you should have a solid understanding of creating and using classes in Laravel 11. Remember, classes are essential for building well structured and maintainable applications. For further exploration, I highly recommend referring to the Laravel official documentation, which provides in-depth explanation and examples on these concepts. So thanks for joining me in this video on classes in Laravel 11. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Laravel tutorials, and also hit the notification bell to stay updated on new videos. I will see you in the next one. Until then, happy coding.